He's a Bully, Charlie Brown is a really brilliant installment in the Charlie Brown series. This was released originally in 2006, so it's slightly one of the more recent ones. I feel like the very contemporary ones are not as good as the originals, but anything from around about the original episodes up until maybe around about this time, actually, the very early 2000s, they still feel like Charlie Brown. And this one is no exception. It's directed by Bill Mendelez and Larry Leichliter. And Charlie Brown is off to camp, much to Peppermint Patty's annoyance. All of them are going to camp. Marcie, Charlie Brown, most of the children. Peppermint Patty has to go to summer school. And I will say she was a shining star in this, even though she's not in it for the most part. But they're all going off to camp, and Rerun is also going there. And Rerun has brought along with him a bag of marbles, which used to belong to his grandfather. And while they're there, there is this horrible bully called Joe, who agrees to teach Rerun how to play marbles. And Rerun thinks that he's just being taught, they're not actually playing a proper game. But when Joe inevitably wins all of the marbles, he tells Rerun that they were playing for keeps. And he demands to take all of Rerun's marbles. And Charlie Brown finds out about this, and Charlie Brown is livid that Linus's brother had been taking a run for his money, or a run for his marbles, when he was just a young amateur player. They should never have been playing for keeps. And Charlie Brown sets about trying to find a way to get back at Joe and prove to him and tell him that bullying is never acceptable. Obviously, it's a very strong, important message here for, well, anybody watching it, but particularly children. And I think certainly when you're in a camp environment, or when you're somewhere where you're mixing with other children you're not used to, whether you're on a school trip with other schools, you're going to encounter children you've never met, and some of those children might take advantage of certain situations. Did Charlie Brown treat him in the right way? I would say absolutely. I'm not going to spoil it. I won't say what Charlie Brown did or what action he took, but I think he displayed a very admirable approach, and definitely something that a lot of people can learn from. I think this is the first time I've seen Rerun as a protagonist, and he's brilliant. I love Linus, and Rerun is kind of an extension of that. Marcie as well. I think this is the first time Marcie had a proper personality. Peppermint Patty would phone up the camp all the time speaking to Marcie, and Marcie would pretend that Charlie Brown was next to her, holding her hand and flirting with her, just to wind up Peppermint Patty, and I loved that. I thought it was such a fun little subplot. It was really engaging, very entertaining, and really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think it's important to have that kind of humour in this when you're dealing with something as heavy as bullying. You don't want it to be too depressing, basically, because it's easy to switch off. But by having those injections of humour, it keeps the mind engaged, and it makes sure that the message is driven home successfully, which I feel like it would have been. Very well animated, of course, an absolute delight. The fact that they're playing with marbles is not really a big thing in 2006, so the subject matter in that regard seemed a little bit dated, but that helped it to feel like a more classic Charlie Brown narrative. They could have done a narrative where, I don't know, I'm trying to think what I would have done in 2006. I can't even remember, but something more technology-based, I guess. But they didn't. They kept it a bit more simple and straightforward, and I really appreciated that. I thought it was very effective. I really liked it. Obviously, tackling the subject of bullying was a big thing, and it worked very well. He's a bully. Charlie Brown is definitely a really, really beautiful special.